Perfect. So, my name is Miss Eilish, and I am one of the Blue STEM Publicity co-chairs. And I am introducing Miss Christina Diaz Gonzalez, who wrote Invisible, which is on our Blue STEM list for this year. So I'm going to give her the opportunity to introduce herself a little bit, and then we'll take questions from you guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina Diaz Gonzalez. I am the author of Invisible, a graphic novel with beautiful illustrations by Gabriella Epstein. And I have written several books, but this is actually my very first graphic novel. And I'm so excited that it's really resonated with so many students. It's the story of five very different kids that are kind of seen as just being five middle school students that all happen to have some Spanish speaking abilities. They have different levels of English speaking abilities, but they're also just kind of seen as labels of the brain, the athlete, the tough kid, the rich kid, and the loner. But there's more to them than just those labels. And I think there's a lot more to all of us than just what people see on the first glance. Um, there's more to us. Some things that we sometimes kind of keep invisible, and sometimes we kind of feel invisible and not seen for who we really are or what we could be. Sometimes we are those labels, but we're much more than just that. Similar to Miguel, who is seen as just an athlete, but he's also an artist. And each person in your community is a lot more than just one thing. So are these characters. So I can't wait to talk about it with all of you and discuss some of the things you might be interested in about Invisible.
Okay, perfect. So we are just going to go across the order that I have on my screen, and I will call on your class. Somebody can ask a question. We will do the next class, and we'll just go around until we don't have any more time. So we will start with Miss Grosskopf's class.
Hello, my name is Andrea, and my question I have for you is what is your favorite character in Invisible?
Hi, Andrea. Um, so Invisible has these five characters that each one is telling their story from their own point of view, their side of the story. And because I'm writing from each character's point of view, I kind of get into their head. So it's hard to pick one that is like my favorite. I'm kind of connected to each one because, well, Diara, her background is Cuban, and so is mine. My parents are from Cuba, and like Diara, and actually like Miguel and Nico, I learned English in school. Um, so my parents, even though I was born in the US, my parents made the decision of teaching me Spanish first. And they wanted to make sure I could speak both languages. So I didn't learn English until I started kindergarten. And so I'm kind of connected to Diara just culturally because of our background. But as a student, I was a lot like George. I was a really good student. I loved to read. I got really wanted to always get good grades. Um, but very similar to Sarah, I moved in eighth grade and to a new city, and I was became really quiet, and no one even really talked to me, and I didn't talk to anyone. But then in ninth grade, I moved again, and this time I didn't want to have the same experience. So I kind of became like Miguel, and I joined teams, and I got really involved in school so I could make friends. Um, and then I was never really like Nico because Nico's kind of standoffish, but he acts like he doesn't care, but he really does. He was doing a lot behind the scenes. And no one ever thought I was like a rich kid. But even though I'm not like Nico, I have to say, Nico might be my favorite only because he's not like me. And there was so much more than meets the eye to Nico. Like he really was trying to help, and he has this backstory that he's the opposite of being rich. He doesn't even know where he's going to live next. So I kind of like that about Nico. So I think that I'm going to choose him for right now as my favorite.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and then we'll go to Miss Benz's class.
My name is Chloe, and my question is, what inspired you to write Invisible?
So I grew up reading a lot of different types of books, including comic books, and I loved the idea of graphic novels, and especially loved it when I visited a school and they had a class of kids who were learning English, and they loved graphic novels because the pictures helped support the story. But the graphic novels they had were all in English or all in Spanish, and I thought it would be a really good thing to have both languages together and highlight kids that usually don't see themselves as the main characters in books, kids who do speak two languages. And so I started coming up with the idea of how could I do this? And based on my own experience and being able to speak both English and Spanish, I wanted to see how it could be all brought together. And so by kind of looking at what I loved and then the idea I had, I really started thinking, well, what if I had a group of kids? And now all of a sudden I started thinking, well, how do I do this? And I went back to the idea of a movie I loved called The Breakfast Club. And in that movie, they had these 5 different personalities. I didn't want to write a book like the movie, but I did want to kind of use those labels to highlight how there's more to us than meets the eye. And so when I kind of put all of those ideas into like a big pot in my brain and then just stirred it up, out came the story of Invisible. So really it was little pieces of my life and experiences of meeting kids that really inspired the novel.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and then we'll take a question from Miss Everett's class.
My name is Arabella, and my question is, how long did it take you to write this book?
Hi, Arabella. So most of my books take me about 4 to 6 months to write the first rough draft that I am willing to share with my editor. I thought it might be different with the graphic novel because it you don't have to create and paint the picture in someone's imagination as to setting and everything else because that's what the illustrator will be doing. But it turned out to take just as long because I have to imagine how it will look on the page and had to describe what would be happening in each panel and break up the scene so that it would make sense so that the illustrator could draw um, the actions in each panel and still have the story moving forward. So it took just as long as a regular book, about 4 to 6 months.
Okay, and then we will circle back to Miss Grosskopf's class.
Hello, my name's Nadia, and my question is, what made you want to be an author?
Hi, Nadia. So I thought about being an author when I was like 10, and I loved reading and I had ideas for books, but it didn't seem like it was something that people like me or my friends could ever do. I grew up in a really small southern town in North Florida, and I never met an author or a writer. So I kind of kept it like a secret dream. Um, didn't really share it with many people, and eventually just kind of put that dream aside and studied different things. I studied accounting in college and then became a lawyer. And then eventually I became a mom. And once I became a mom and my kids started reading, it reminded me how much fun reading could be. And I still had ideas for books that didn't exist because they were still locked away in my imagination. And so seeing my kids read reminded me of that dream I had when I was 10. And that really inspired me to become an author.
Thank you.
Excellent. And then we'll go to Miss Benz's class.
My name is Max, and why did you decide to name the book Invisible?
Hey, Max. So, Invisible, I wanted a title that would reflect kind of how the kids and different people in our communities might feel. And I think everyone at some point kind of feels invisible and isn't really seen for who they are, or at least not the whole picture of who they are. And they're much more than their labels. But I also wanted a title that would be reflective of not only the kids but the story itself, that's told so much of it in Spanish. So invisible is spelled and means the same thing in both English and Spanish. So it's invisible and invisible, which means invisible in Spanish.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good question, friend. And then we will go to Miss Everett's class again.
Um, my and um, like, is this your favorite book? And did it take a lot of patience to make this book?
Oh, so when people ask me about my favorite book that I've written, I always say it's kind of like asking a mom, like, who is your favorite kid? And, as a mom, you know that all your kids are loved and special and your favorites in their own unique way. And especially with books, it's almost like being the mom, because you come up with the story and you're kind of living with it in your head for so long and working on it. And then once it becomes an actual book, you're talking about it pretty much for forever. You're talking about the books that you've written. And so it's really almost impossible to say that there is a favorite. But I will say that it was an incredibly fun experience writing Invisible. So much so that I decided to write another graphic novel. Not with these five characters, with five new characters that end up, it'll come out in like a year. And this time it's about five kids who are in middle school, and they're trying out for their middle school soccer team. That used to be only for boys. Now it's for boys and girls. And some of the boys aren't very happy about the girls that are not only trying out, that actually become starters on the team because they're really good. And so I wrote that one as a graphic novel too. So it was a lot of fun. It was different than writing a regular book because, again, I write it and I kind of imagine how it'll all look like on a page, but then I hand it over to the illustrator. And then the illustrator takes my stories and all of my words, but uses my suggestions only as suggestions. Sometimes I might have thought this should be done in 4 panels, and then she's like, no, it's best in 7. And she, illustrates it in a different way. And she uses her imagination to decide how the characters are going to look and the setting and all the actions around the characters. So it's always a fun process, and it's also exciting for me to see what the illustrator's imagination is going to come up with.
Okay, and then we'll go back to the beginning with Miss Grosskopf's class again.
Hi, my name is Riley, and my question for you is, did you experience what one of the characters experienced as a kid?
Hi, Riley. So, um, none of the things that the kids experience is exactly something that I experienced. I didn't go through anything exactly like what George is going through, or Nico, or actually any of them. But I did have different experiences. Learning English, I remember how that felt. Moving to a new city, being the new kid, having to make friends, having friends that have learning difficulties and learning issues, and also dealing with friends moving and some of them being out of district. So it's either my own experiences, kind of how I would have reacted had I been in those situations, or situations of people that I've met along the way in my life. So I try to bring in all of that. But exactly what one of the characters has experienced, I have not. But every time you write, you kind of put in your own emotions and experiences into whatever situations you're making your characters go through.
Thank you.
Okay.
We don't have a chance yet.
Is she?
Yeah.
Why she want to become an author?
Okay, and then Miss Benz's class.
Nice one.
How did you choose the illustrator of the book?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I actually didn't really choose the illustrator. So I wrote the story, I came up with the idea and then wrote the story. And then my publisher, Scholastic, um, found the illustrators. They had a few illustrators that they were considering, and they showed me some of Gabrielle Epstein's work, and I thought it was great and it was perfect for the story. They agreed, and then she agreed to do the book, but she was actually working on a different book for Scholastic at the time. She was doing some of the Babysitter Club graphic novels. And so she had to finish that one. And then when she was done, she started working on this one. So actually, Gabriella Epstein and I have actually never even met in person, but she was given my manuscript to bring her creativity into play and create the characters in the book.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and then Miss Everett's class.
Hi, I'm Jayana, and my question is, if you had to be a character from your book, which one would you be?
Oh, so that's kind of figures into the question of which one is my favorite character. But maybe not really, because if I had to be one of the kids, I probably the easiest one that I would fall into being would probably be, I think it might be George, only because that was a lot like me back in middle school. I was, I had my little group of friends, and I was working really hard to get good grades because I had ambition to get into really good schools in the future. So chances are, if I had to pick and I had to pick the who I would be, it would be the easiest transition into becoming, it would probably be George.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and then we'll go back to the beginning again with Miss Grosskopf's class.
Hello, my name is Mikhail, and are any of your characters based on real life people?
Not really any one particular person in real life. They're pretty much compilations of people maybe that I've met along the way, or people that I know. but I actually just started with the idea of the characters based off of this movie, The Breakfast Club, and then started thinking every time they would react, I would kind of think of maybe a couple people that I might have met, how they would have reacted, but it wasn't based on any particular person. It's really hard for me to base a character off someone I really know exactly like them or exactly like their experiences, because then I kind of feel like I have to think of how they would react instead of letting my imagination create a brand new character.
Thank you.
Okay, Miss Benz's class.
Hi, my name is Bach. I'm wondering what your favorite book growing up was.
Hi, Bach. I think my favorite book growing up was probably a book that a teacher and a librarian kind of conspired to get me to read. Um, like I had said before, I was a good student, but I was also a kid who always liked to do extra credit because I wanted to get the best grades I could. And so the teacher and librarian really wanted me to read like different types of books. I was reading a lot of mysteries. I thought that was the only kind of book I liked. And they wanted me to try new things. And so they gave me a book that had to do with science fiction and time travel, and I didn't think I'd like it. And the book was A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. And I loved the book. I thought it was so good. I loved that it was this really smart girl, and there was all this action and adventure in it. And it made me realize that if I wasn't giving this great book a chance, how many other great books were there out there that I wasn't even thinking about reading? And so I started reading other types of books like historical fiction and things, comedies, and all sorts of horror, and realized that sometimes like some books aren't for me, which is okay. Like I'm a scaredy cat, so I don't like horror books. Um, but I discovered that I do love all these other type of books, and that there are really great novels out there. So it just kind of opened up the world of books to me, and so I considered that being like my favorite book of all time. You're welcome.
Okay, and then we'll go to the Everett fourth graders again.
What is your favorite part of the story?
I think probably when the kids are all plotting how they're going to be able to uh, sneak someone out of the cafeteria to go let them know that there's this opportunity for a job, but they have to make a plan to be able to sneak out and get Ms. Grouser out of the cafeteria. And so, and they're putting, soap on the floor, and all these crazy things are gonna be happening. And I just love the whole, like, having them plot to be able to sneak out. So that's probably my favorite part.
Okay, and then we will go back to Miss Grosskoff's class.
Hi, my name is Reina. How did you choose the characters?
Hi, Raina. I really just chose the characters, um, the descriptions based off that movie that I liked. So I like the idea of having very distinct personalities of the brain, the athlete, the tough kid, the rich kid, the loner, but at the end have them realize that there's so much more than just those labels. Um, and so it really kind of stemmed from the movie, getting those general character personalities, and then the rest of their personalities really just came from my imagination as to thinking, well, what more are they than just those labels?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and Miss Benz's class?
My name's Milan and I have a question. Will there be a sequel to Invisible?
Oh, great question. So there isn't really a sequel for Invisible because the characters are in eighth grade and it's already the end of eighth grade when the story takes place. So if there was a sequel, they would already be in high school. And I didn't really want to do a book with them in high school because not all of them might go to the same high school and it would be they would be a little older. So I came up with an idea for another book where there'll be five kids, very similar to Invisible, where they have very different personalities. They have different English and Spanish speaking skills. In fact, one of them actually speaks Portuguese. He's Brazilian American. So in that new book, it's called Offside. It's you have one character who's American, but went to a school where he learned Spanish. So he actually speaks both English and Spanish, but he's purely American. And then you have a new girl to school who's Colombian and she only speaks Spanish. Asian Peruvian boy who also is learning English, but he is from Peru. So even though he looks Asian, he speaks Spanish. And then you have a Brazilian American boy who speaks English but understands some Portuguese. And you have, I think I'm missing, or did I just say all five? But yeah, so you have those characters. So it'll be similar in a way to Invisible, but all new adventure, all new backgrounds for those characters.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and the Everett fourth graders again.
Hi, my name is Ella, and my question is, when did you write this book and why?
When did I write the book?
Ella. Yeah.
When did I write the book? So I actually wrote the book like 8 years ago. So I wrote it a long time ago. And so I wrote it because I saw the need for, or not so much even the need, that I just thought it was interesting that there were no graphic novels that would have both English and Spanish in them. And definitely no books highlighting kids that spoke both languages. And so I came up with the idea about 8 years ago, and I wrote it pretty quickly thereafter. But then there were delays with the original illustrator, and that didn't work out. So we ended up waiting for about a year, and then we had to find a new illustrator. And then by the time we found Gabby, she was already working on a different book, so we had to wait for her to finish that book. And then we had the pandemic, and we had to wait for that to be over. So everything kept being delayed. So I actually wrote the book a really long time ago, but finally it came out and now everyone is reading it. So I'm really excited about that.
I thank you.
Okay, friends, so it is 11:30, so we are going to let each class ask one more question and then we'll be done for today, okay? So we'll start with Miss Grosskoff's class again, and then we'll do Miss Benz's class and the Everett fourth graders, and then we'll say thank you and goodbye.
What do you think
What do you think
is the most important lesson
is the most important lesson
kids learn from this book?
kids learn from this book?
Oh, that's such a good question. I'm hoping that a lesson that the readers get from this book is to really kind of have an understanding and compassion for other people in our community and in our schools, that maybe when you first meet them, you think that, they're just one thing, and understand that, everyone has a lot more to them than what we first perceive. So maybe they're more than just the athlete or a good gamer or someone who's really quiet and shy. That they might have a lot more going on in their lives than we expect. And hopefully we let our own secret dreams and personalities come through and share them with other people so they get to know us a little bit better as well.
And we actually have to go because it is our recess and lunchtime, but we want to thank you so, so much. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead, Miss Ben's class.
Hi, my name's Grace, and I was wondering, what is your favorite part about being an author?
Ooh, my favorite part, without a doubt, is getting to talk to readers like you about the books I've written. That's absolutely 100% my favorite part.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and our last question from the Everett fourth graders.
Hi, my name is Keegan. Why did you write the book?
Hi, Keegan. I wrote the book because I really wanted to highlight kids who are learning another language or speak two languages, but I also wanted to kind of show that we are more than just one thing, that we all have our own secret dreams, and our personalities are more than just what you see on the surface. And that was really the big motivation to write the book. I just wanted to really get the message out there that, you know, we are all more than just what we see on the surface, and that even the things that we sometimes kind of keep invisible reflect on who we are, and can sometimes be more important to show those sides of us than keep them hidden away. You're welcome. It was a pleasure talking to all of you.
Thank you so much for joining us today, friends. And what a great last round of questions. So we are gonna thank our author and then we're gonna go. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.